Hi there and welcome to this first look where we're going to be checking out the new Sektor synth by Initial Audio. Initial Audio have also done a couple of other instruments such as Heat Up 2, the Boom Back Bang drum kit, 808 Studio bass synthesizer, and their previous output seems to be marketed towards grime, trap, D&B, bass and hip hop producers, mostly offering players triggering samples contained within a virtual instrument. So Sektor is potentially the first release from these guys that's going to appeal to a much wider audience. It's a wavetable synthesizer with a few tricks up its sleeve, including a sample layer, quite an advanced sequencer, a reroutable effects chain featuring 2 identical effects racks, the option to change skins and customize the GUI colors, and a few other unique features that we'll be taking a look at in this video. So we can hear this demo track playing in the background. It's 100% made from sounds using Sektor synthesizer, the drums included, so using the sample layer for the drums, a couple of presets dialed up, and zero processing on any of the channels or the master output whatsoever. So the best place to start is probably with the presets. We get 500 with the synthesizer, so let's dive around some of these, play a few presets from each of these categories and have a little listen. So we can hear it's really quite a versatile synthesizer, capable of more aggressive and distorted tones right through to big warm sounding synths, as well as more organic sounds like the string category. So let's take a look then. Let's actually begin by initializing the synthesizer. And let's take a look at this sample layer up here. We'll turn this on, turn the oscillator off. And we can load a variety of samples in here. So we get some samples organized by category. So for example, noise, white noise, sound effect, tape hiss. So quite nice for adding a little bit of a analog feel to a synth sound. We've got some really nice bass samples. .808 bass samples and a combination of synthesized sounds and more organic sounds. A series of guitars. A As well as this, we have multi-samples, so presumably taken from hardware. Really nice bass sounds in the multi-sample sections. Some organs. And the cool thing about this is you can combine the sample layer with one of the oscillators. So you could go back in here, we've got some percussive sounds. So I could take one of these kick drum samples, for example. Something like that. And we could layer that. You know, we could make a pluck sound, and rather than having to use pitch modulation to get a real nice transient on there, we could just layer a kick drum sound with one of these oscillators to add that transient in. So the sample layer is really nice, and let's now take a look at this oscillator section. It's a wavetable synthesizer, so we can dial up wavetables in here and we get a series of different wavetables. And then we have our morph control, morphing between the different waveforms contained within each wavetable, and of course we can modulate this control. And tons of wavetables for you to check out. And then we get our signature ones as well. And then we get our voices per oscillator, so we can dial up to 16 voices per oscillator. And at this stage, let's bring this oscillator section into view, because this is really cool. So we get, for each oscillator, we get these controls. So we get per voice editing of the pitch. So I can bring individual voices up in pitch. So just taking the first voice up there or down. So you can get some really nice harmonic content that way. And then you have the detune control, again, per voice detune. So I've got 7 voices, and let's bring up this detune control now. You can see how it's actually, when you bring up that detune control, how it's detuning those voices. Only up to number 7, because we've only got 7 voices dialed in here. So we could actually edit this ourselves and just manually add the detune. If I bring in more voices, you can see I can now edit the detune on the extra voices. And the same goes for the stereo. So really nice. We've got a phase control as well. The change in the start point of that waveform, and then we can edit the phase in here per voice, the level, or the wavetable position. And this is really interesting. If you look at this waveform representing the waveform of the wavetable that's playing back in the oscillator, you start editing this and it changes that waveform. So you're just manually drawing in quite unique waves. So yeah, that's the oscillator section. You can invert the waveform as well. So that's really nice. And if we bring in oscillator 2 now, that's a bit loud. So we also get an FM control on oscillator 2. So FM synthesis from A. So oscillator B is being modulated by A, and quite a nice thing if you hover over any of the parameters. So in this instance, you want to find out exactly how the FM synthesis is working, hover over it and it'll tell you. So let's take a look now at the sequencer. So I'll dial in a different preset. Something quite clean sounding like that. So we get quite a nice advanced sequencer in here, and you've got quite a few octaves of tuning to just create really nice melodic arpeggiator sequence sounds. So now I've got it on and I play back. No sounds will play back until we start to dial in some notes in here. And it can be a really nice way to intuitively just get some quite nice little hooks down. You can change the speed, add extra steps. As well as this, we've got all these sequencer presets. That you could dial up, or you could just look at one of these and edit them so it suits the vibe that you're after. So it's quite a nice little sequencer. And let's bring up a different sound again now. Oh, actually, if we look at the effects section and just start by bringing one of these plucks. So, effects section, and we've got a series of effects, reverbs, compressor, delay. The trance gate is pretty cool. I just turn the other ones off for now. And it might work better with a bit more sustain. And do that trance gated sound very quickly. Add the smooth if you're getting a bit of a clicks and pops. Add the steps, change the speed. And they'll get an auto panner as well, which is quite nice. Nice to have a compressor on the synthesizer as well. And then the more familiar stuff, phaser chorus, delay. But these effects can be reordered, so that's quite nice. So if we're adding some distortion here, we're adding distortion to everything, including the reverb and delay. But we could drag this distortion up to the top, so now we're distorting the sound and then adding reverb. So in theory, the reverb sound will be a bit cleaner. And then we're compressing the reverb, you know, so you can reorder the effects just by dragging and dropping them. So, and then you also get these inputs. So let's just say add the reverb on its own in this first effects rack and change the input to filter 1. And we've got our 2 oscillators. So let's say the first oscillator is going to filter 1, the second is going to filter 2, and then in our second effect rack, we can change the input to filter 2 and add, say, a delay, and so we distinguish the sounds. Let's push this delay up by 2 octaves. So now we've got 2 independent lines. We've got this second oscillator going into filter 2, which is then being fed into the effect rack 2, and we're adding a delay to that sound. And on the effect rack 1, well, oscillator 1 is being fed into filter 1, and then that output is being fed into effect rack 1. We're just adding reverb to, so you can get 2 independent lines, or you could add filter 1 and filter 2. They're both routed into effect rack 1, and then effect rack 2, you could take the input from effect rack 1. You can get some quite complex routing with the effects. Doing it in this way, we've actually added the effects racks in serial, so we could add one reverb now, and one delay. And then we could add another reverb, but add a slightly different reverb in the second effect rack. And again, same with the delay. Or you could even add two compressors, you know, or the distortion, you could add a bit of hard clip in here. And then in the first effect rack, you could add a bit of bit crushing. So you can get some really cool and quite unique original sounds using stacking the effects up in that way, with consideration to the routing and the input that you select in here. So now we'll take a look at the modulation section, loading a new sound in here. So we can add modulation to any of the parameters by right clicking on one of these controls, and then we can say add modulation source, and you can add loads of modulators to each parameter. So on this, say I wanted to add loads of parameter or modulation parameters to this cutoff frequency, right click, and I could add both of these. I could add basically everything on this list to this one parameter. So there's no limit to how many modulators you add to one parameter. It's only limited by the fact that you've got these in the list, but you're never going to want to add that many different modulations to one parameter. But it just means you can get some really complex sounds happening. So you could add 4 LFOs to one cutoff frequency and apply different parameters in all 4 LFOs. And then you've got your modulators down here, so you would change the parameters on the modulators down here. So really you can get some quite complex modulations happening. You can take a clean sound like that, and this is our amp envelope over here, the 2 filters. So this is quite standard stuff really. You can dial in a variety of different filters in each one of these. And we get a hardwired filter envelope for each one of those, and then a 2 envelope control. So down here we can have the keys up. We go to our expression, and we've got 8 expression slots. So we can apply, say, velocity in this first one and target it to the cutoff frequency of filter 1. So now you can see the cutoff frequency here is responding to the velocity of the notes being triggered. So we can also, if we click on a destination again, so we can edit the curve of the velocity. So we could have a bit more like that, or so you can get some quite customizable, very customizable control. So again, we could drop this next one down, mod wheel, destination. So the LFO 1 level, and then if we go to our LFO and direct this towards the pitch. So we could tweak it a bit more so it was actually adding vibrato, but then you could then just tweak how the modulation wheel behaved really. So if it just went straight up like that, or if you had it a little bit more sort of curved. Or you can double click on these and just get, start really tweaking stuff around. So, I mean, it's one of those where you can dial up the preset and just have the really nice big sound, or you can really get under the hood and start tweaking a lot of more complex stuff. We've got our modulation envelopes. We can send to a variety of different destinations. And then we get these, the ADSR envelopes, and then we get these 2 modulation envelopes, and we can get a bit more. These can be looped and they can be tweaked a little bit more, just really customizable envelopes. So I could direct this to, say, the pitch of oscillator A and the pitch of oscillator B. And then I could go into this mode here and I could loop this envelope and change the length, or I could sync it actually to, say, eighths. And as well as just dialing in or drawing in your own envelope, you actually get a series of envelope presets. So you could dial these up very quickly and tweak one of these. And we get 2 of these modulation envelopes sent to 4 different destinations. Oh no, sorry. We get 3 of these modulation envelopes. We can send to a variety of different destinations. The LFOs, 4 LFOs, and our modulation matrix, where we can just then set up further modulations between different parameters. So as you can see, there's loads of stuff in this synthesizer. And like I was saying, you can just go and dial up one of the nice sounding presets. Got loads of effects on already, ready to go. Or you can get really under the hood and just start getting quite deep with the sound design with the synthesizer. And finally, if we go to the settings, I've not mentioned this yet, you can customize the skin. So you can select, if I go in here, I can change the skin of the synth if you want. So you get a couple of options for this, or some signature ones. Or we can change the GUI colors. So go in here, and the main screen color you can change, the modulation color. You could even take, if you go to the keys, you could take the white keys, make them black. Just start tweaking stuff around. I mean, some of it might be, I don't know, to some people it might be gimmicky, to some people it will just help their workflow, and they want to customize that kind of stuff. So there's a bit of stuff. The first look on Sektor Synth by Initial Audio. It's out now, and it's a really cool synthesizer, and it's capable of loads of different stuff. So yeah, go and check it out.